Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Creatives Ignite. I am here with a new friend, Barry Kudrowitz. He is in Minneapolis, so he can be friends with Paul. Paul's also in Minneapolis. This is live. You guys can always know you can join us, but we're going to be talking about this book. This is his book. It is packed with fun things to do, but it's also really interesting and how creative thinkers think. A lot of us, maybe are solopreneurs and we work alone. So we're always looking for ways to sharpen those creative blades. And he gives us some really good games to play. We're going to talk about some of those or things to do, but also how humor makes a huge difference. And I, of course, really like that because I like to laugh. Don't y'all? You like to laugh, Barry, right?
Yeah.
So you're in Minneapolis. You're a professor. You're now chair. You've been chair for a while, but tell them a little bit about your background and then I'll ask you where you are, what you do, and then I'll ask you how you got interested in studying about play and humor and creativity.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm here in Minneapolis. I founded the product design program in the College of Design at the University of Minnesota. And now I'm the department head of a department that includes graphic design, product design, apparel design, retail merchandising, user experience design, and human factors. How did I get here? I'm actually trained as a mechanical engineer,
Wow.
and I all my degrees are in mechanical engineering. I'm from Florida, so I know somebody else here
Yep.
is
Jeremy
from
Kennedy.
Orlando.
Yep.
um, I went to school at UCF in Orlando, and I wanted to design theme park rides, and they were like, "You should be a mechanical engineer." And so I went into mechanical engineering, and I thought, well, I guess Orlando is a good place for that. So that's where I ended up. And it turns out that that wasn't exactly the type of theme park ride stuff I wanted to be doing. I wanted like the more theming and like creative,
Mm-hmm.
conceptual stuff. Um, I somehow found industrial design. I ended up at MIT working on toy design, and doing Nerf and Super Soaker uh, uh, concept design for my master's.
That's cool. Okay, so I have friends that teach at UCF, but they don't teach in mechanical engineering. So I know you probably wouldn't know them. But UCF's up and coming, right? Like they have a good design program, I know. But they're not that old of a school, right?
Um, I think they're one of the largest
It is.
universities
It
in,
is.
yeah.
But when did it start? Like, was it in the 60s? I mean, it's not like as old as University of Florida or
No, I actually don't. I
you don't
don't
know.
know the
Okay,
history.
no worries.
Sorry.
It's totally fine. Um, anyway, so I think that that is such an interesting. We've had a couple other people who have had a engineering background or a physics background, or they have something else, but then they found their way to design. Sometimes that's a bumpy road. Um, was it in between? Like, did you try to work, or did you know even in school you were like, this mechanical engineering is not for me?
I think I was like good at it and I appreciated it, but I wanted to be drawing and, making stuff and not analyzing systems and, writing equations to stuff. So it was sometime around like senior year where I was like, oh, industrial design. That
Hmm.
that was the degree. But I don't think there was an industrial design program in the state of Florida. And so I guess it sort of made sense that
Yeah.
no one knew, where to direct me.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Okay. So then when did you get interested? Was it in your master's program? Was it after about studying play and then humor and how they're connected to creativity?
Yeah. So when I was at MIT, I took over a course that was kind of taught through this thing called this Edgerton Center, and grad students could teach classes. And I took over a sports class and I didn't know anything about sports. So I made it toy design because that's what I was doing for my master's, working with Hasbro. And this was about 17 years ago. I started this class called Toy Product Design, and it's still going now at MIT. They still have the toy design course. And I taught it for 6 years there. And then I brought it to the University of Minnesota and I taught it for another 10 years here at the University of Minnesota. And that's how I got into designing for play, because I basically had to create course content and I was writing papers and working with the toy industry. But the humor part didn't come until I was an exchange student at TU Delft in the Netherlands. And I went there like between master's and PhD to just learn more about industrial design. And I started a research project with surprise, related to surprise in products and like what types of surprises people like and what types of surprises people don't like. And we were making, I remember like rubber duckies that like did different. One was like we put like a whoopee cushion inside. So it was like a farting rubber ducky. And like, in that process of understanding surprise, there was a lot of research on humor. And in the reading about those theories of humor, there was a revelation that the incongruity theory of humor is the same as the associative theory of creativity. They're both about making non-obvious connections between seemingly unrelated things. And that eventually became my PhD thesis on humor and creativity and also improv comedy.
So then how does that play a role in in making super soakers better, or like the practical part? Because sometimes it feels like and this is from me being somebody who really likes those games, but I'm not really sure how, and I play them. I think that they're lots of fun, but I'm not sure if it's just a release, like a stress release, or is it helping me to pick up on patterns quicker when I'm with a client, or make different associations. So then I can have a weird connection and then my ad campaign series will be more memorable. And so people, do you know what I mean? Like how I've always feel like if my dad was watching me teach a class and we're playing these games, he would be like, why are you wasting these kids' money with this game or this thing? And I haven't ever really been able to put a finger on it, but your book does go into some of those things. So can you tell us a little bit about that, or how we practically can use these games in our work? Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so I guess it sort of what you mean by game. Like, so in the book, I talk about different like actual board games, right?
But also like, word games, like there's
right.
association with two words. There's lots of, I call them games. Maybe they're
right.
Not.
Yeah, no, those are games. And then there's a lot of creativity tests that resemble games. Actually, Categories as a board game has been used as a creativity test because it has so much in common with standard tests of creativity. It almost tests all of the elements of the Torrance test. If you're playing Categories, it tests novelty of ideas, fluency of ideas, quantity of ideas, flexibility of ideas, and elaboration. So a lot of things that we think of as like just a game are building creative skills. And we could go through a bunch of different like Pictionary or Scrabble, right? And I'm going to step back just a little bit, but that's how we learn. Like, that's not just how humans learn. That's how animals learn best. We learn through play. Dogs, seagulls, spiders, dolphins, they learn skills that they need for adulthood, physical skills, emotional skills, cognitive skills, through playing. And the weird thing here is that as we get older, we say, no. When you go to school, you're going to learn this way. We're not going to play games. You're going to copy notes, and you're going to listen to me lecture, and you're going to take tests, right? But that's the weird thing. That's not how we learn best. We learn best through play and through games. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons why that. I mean, like engagement and flow, and you're doing things because you want to do it, not because of external rewards. And I talk about all this in the book. But when we go into academia, it's like, it's grades, right? Don't mess up because you're going to get a bad grade. And it sucks the play. It makes things not play anymore. That's how you make something work.
Right.
Which makes it not a great means of learning something. So I think just the nature of the book is like, we need to go back to embracing play and also humor, because that's how we learn best. Everything.
Absolutely. Okay. So one of the things you and I talked about the other day, I always think it's fun because sometimes I can make it through a book, but I'm a really slow reader, but I do appreciate the book. The book is really fun. And if you notice the parts that I've read, there's all these highlights. I mean, I'm like, ooh, this is neat. Let's do this. Let's try this. And I mean, all these things up, and I've added, I mean, there are spaces for you to write in as well. Some of the things are there space, and you're supposed to fill it out and do that. And I do write in my book. So, but there's imagination. You talk about imagination, and you and I talked about this the other day. And I'm going to read my question. Imagination and cultivating imagination is important in future inventions and just progress. And we think about this like when we were kids, if we said, we'll have these devices. There was a show, I can't remember what it was called, but he traveled in the future, and he had these, it was like a jitterbug, really, and it had really big, like, glowing buttons, and the guy would go and he would change a little bit of the past. And do you know what? I don't remember what TV show it was, but it was like a device, and he would send this man back and forth in time.
Sliders? No, not sliders. Quantum Leap?
Yeah, Quantum Leap is what I'm thinking. But and granted, we can't transport yet, but I think this is what really caught me when we talked before. You said, if we don't imagine, if we don't dream like that, then we will never transport, but we have to have some of that science fiction and some of that imagination, because who would think that this would allow me to talk to my friend Pippa this morning in London, or that I could see you on my phone if I wanted to. And I just think it really brought home how important it is for us to, I think kids do this really well. They are like, their imagination, they don't have limits. But then this is one of the things that they do kind of drive out of us in school. And then some of us just don't do well. So then we go into art or creative field. But how important is that in making some of these huge progress leaps in just someone imagining? And in Quantum Leap, do you remember that thing that guy would hold? I mean, it was kind of jitterbuggy, like, they had big buttons.
He was a hologram. I mean, I think holograms even something that back in the time, they're like, how do you do that? And now there are some pretty realistic hologram machines that are very real, that are probably even better than the portrayal of a hologram in Quantum Leap, right? And I think that's the interesting thing here is it's all in perspective. It's just like how we don't realize we're aging, and then we're like, oh my gosh, I'm old. It's the same way with technology. You don't realize how advanced things have gotten until you put it in perspective. Mm-hmm. And as you were holding up your phone, like, yes, this all seems normal right now, but even if I showed this to somebody 20 years ago, right, this would blow their mind, right? And or if we go back even further, I like to go back, the light bulb is like 120 years old. It's not, or the current incandescent version of them, right? It's not that long ago when we didn't have electricity in our house. That was not a thing. Like even in my house, like even my house right now, the light bulbs that are on the walls, behind them is a gas pipe, because they used to be, there was a flame that came out of the wall. That's how old I'm, and then that's in my current house, right? So 120 years ago, we didn't have like, a light switch that turned on a light. The wild, wacky idea. And if I went back 120 years and I showed them this would look like magic. It would look like wizardry, or like I was an extraterrestrial. Like I would look like an alien showing them this thing, like I was tricking them, or like a god, right? And we wouldn't be able to comprehend that. But that's going to be the exact same thing if I took something from 50 years from now and I showed it to us today. You would say, how are you doing that? That must be like movie tricks or something, right? But it's not. It's just we gradually improve our technology, and it goes incrementally, that we don't realize that it's, even with physical abilities. If you look at the first Olympics and the current Olympics Olympians look like superheroes compared to the original. They're like jumping like twice as high and like doing crazy backflips, and like the ski jump, right? If you compare them, it just looks, how are they doing that, right? And that's the same way. To just go back to your first statement, I think Disney, I'm a Disney person, but they say if you can dream it, you can do it. Mm-hmm. We have to think in the future. We have to think, and designers are really good at that, thinking 50 years from now, when this technology is commonplace, what are the possibilities?
So if we are trying to do this, if we have kind of gotten this out of us, or if we're just so in a job that isn't pushing us, I feel like this is like just a skill, like riding your bike. If you're not riding your bike very much, you're not going to be able to be like, you know what, this summer, I think I'm going to do the Tour de France. Like you're not going to do that. You're probably not even going to go on a regular bike race. So how can we stay sharp? Because this is something that I think we get sharp in areas, but then we're dull on other parts. And I think we don't want to be, but we don't notice. And this is where I think some of the humor can come in, because it is such a, you talk in the book about divergent thinking and convergent thinking, which I think is really helpful, because some people, with my students, some people are much more image thinkers and some are more word thinkers. And there's all kinds of things that improv, I think you learned the power of improv. And I've been watching stuff just to kind of get prepared for this. When I've had 5 minutes, I'll just watch some of Whose Line Is It Anyway, because that's a great show they have props, but they also do words. If somebody isn't a crazy concepter, or they're not really utilizing their imagination, they're doing some things, they're being creative, but maybe they're not, I think your imagination and thinking more future wise, what are some things that we could do to sharpen those skills?
At a high level, you can learn to be more creative. And so I do studies in my own creativity course. So one thing you can do is take a class, right? And the creativity course I teach is essentially design thinking or design process. And we do before and after studies with standardized creativity tests, but also like real world design challenges. And everyone increases their creative abilities after taking a class like that. And this is the group that improves the most are the ones that are least creative. on the onset, right? So one thing you do is take courses, right? The area that my PhD went in was improv training, because improv has such a strong overlap with team-based idea generation. It's almost the same thing. If you look at what skills are that they're teaching you in improv workshops, it's listening, deferring judgment, building on ideas, coming up with lots of ideas, encouraging wild ideas. And it's all like that's just almost the rules of team-based idea generation. And so it makes sense that they're like improv comedians are really good at creative thinking. But we wanted to test that. So we did improv warm-ups or workshops before idea generation, and people came up with significantly more ideas than if they did something else, like an activity by themselves or nothing, right? Before idea generation. So improv is definitely one way to improve your creative abilities. In the book, I talk about a lot of other avenues like inspiration. I have a chapter on drugs. I'm not advocating for it, but there's a lot of research on that. Incubation, doing new things. One of two of the high correlates, personality correlates with creativity is openness to new things and extroversion. And why that's related to creativity is people who are open to new things are making interesting connections. They're building a database of stuff that they might connect in the future. Same with extroverts. It's not like extroverts are more creative all the time. It's that they're talking to the person in the elevator. They're going out to the party and they're building that database of information. Introverts, you can do that too, like on TikTok or scrolling news feeds or reading magazines. It's really just about building that database of data of points that you can then connect in the future.
Yeah. So my friend, Chris Martin, he has a podcast called Getting Work to Work, and he's really all about what people are curious about. And this is where I think being curious allows you to, the more you know about a wide array of things, as a designer, we can bring those things in and make some interesting connections. History, maybe you really are interested in history. I always think that there's ways to do that. When you said I think in the book you talk about eating, like people who are like you might be adventurous in eating, right?
Yeah, like not neophobic. So
I don't know what
not afraid of new foods. Right?
Okay, so I am a very picky eater, so I was like, well, that's not me. But I think I do try a lot of things. But I think food's just was a trigger for me. But one thing I thought was interesting was improv also, and a comedian has to know their audience. They can't tell the same jokes at a retirement community that they would tell at a college auditorium with college students. So I think it's also them knowing their audience. And as designers, we really do have to understand who's using the product or the toy or the app or the device or whatever. And I think that that's something that is also really important in improv. You have the words they use to the audience so that they would be able to relate. And I think that was interesting to me. In another way, unless you have something you want to add on. Okay. So you also talked about cartoons and how cartoons, which I thought was really also interesting, was cartoons can be predictors of the future. So we're kind of going back to that imagination where anything can happen.
Yeah, so, I mean that's it, right. It's a cartoon.
But it also has to relate enough to us as into our lives, and the Simpsons I think are one that you mentioned in the book. I know that there are lots of others, but there has to be something we relate to, but then there has to be something that is it's normal for them in their life that it happens, and it's painting the picture so that it we still can connect, but it gets us used to that device or that ability or something like that. Is there anything else like that you realize in your research or when you were writing about just the power of cartoons to predict the future?
The fun thing about animation is that you can do anything you want. Like the character can turn into something else, right? I took a class many years ago back in grad school on comics, and the instructor at the time was talking about how cartoons today they stopped doing that. Back a long time ago, like Mickey Mouse like turned into a puddle, right? And then it like reformed, right? And his nose popped off. And or even like the coyote like exploded. And then at the time, the cartoons of today were very real world. It was like, Jetsons, Flintstone kind of thing, where they followed real world convention, like Family Guy, even. It wasn't like they were kind of confined to the real world parameters, even though they weren't actually confined to real world. And so I thought that was an interesting observation. And I think cartoons are starting to change a little bit, like Adventure Time is, and others are going back to the old days where you embraced that it was animated. But here's where it connects to innovation and design. When you're animating, it's the same as being like a future thinker. You can do anything you want, right? And I think the Simpsons writers, it's not necessarily that they're futurists, but they're really, really smart humorists that are playing in this sandbox where you can make commentary on the status quo. You have episodes where that interface with what's going on in the real world, like Family Guy and South Park do. And so sometimes their predictions are inspired by the real world, and they're making these educated guesses that sometimes end up turning out to be real, right? Like Trump being president, or the Shard skyscraper in London in the exact location that it is right now on the skyline. And there's a whole series of Simpsons predictions that are now real. And I think what's happening here is like it's this interesting interplay between artists, designers, and scientists, and they're sort of, I don't know whether the cartoon inspired reality or reality was inspired by the cartoon, but it happens often. Like Willy Wonka, has all of these candy inventions, and they're all now real, right? Most of them are real. There's bubble gum that changes flavor. There's balloon toffee that you blow up into a balloon. There's ice cream that stays solid when it's hot. Those are almost all of the Willy Wonka inventions are real now. Whether chefs, pastry chefs, food scientists were inspired by Willy Wonka and actually made them, or was Roald Dahl a futurist, or was he just playing in that adjacent possible? Like, okay, wouldn't it be cool if, you could lick the wallpaper, right? That's like, he's like, okay, that's Black Mirror kind of stuff, right? It's sort of possible, not quite, but maybe in 10 years, yeah, sure, why not? We can totally do that.
So do you find it hard for yourself, or when do you find it hard to dream bigger or Is there a time, or are you pretty open to that always?
Um, I
Meaning
don't.
in a so in school when you're teaching this, sometimes there if we're always solving problems. So whether it's a marketing problem or it's a website, a user experience problem, we can come at it from different ways. So I think of when I was reading this, I'm thinking about, wow, would this really help with creative block? Sometimes we have a hard time dreaming bigger because I think that my students or my friends or me, I'm in the same rut. I have a hard time thinking outside because I've done this so many times. So when somebody asks me, "Well, can you think differently about this?" It's difficult at times, especially things that I've done often. Um, I'm trying to get ways that maybe you personally or things that you've seen, because when you tell something, when you tell us, when we're listening, we're like, oh yeah, that could be me. Maybe I need to try this other thing to get out of this rut. I didn't even know I was in a rut, right?
Yeah, I'm in that way too, right? We always have to be questioning why we're doing things the way we're doing things, and it's actually going back to humor. This is like observational comedy. This is Seinfeld or Larry David. This is exactly what they do, and it's also what good designers do. They question everyday things.
Mm.
Why why do we have this, toothbrush, that what this thing that we stick in our mouth? Why is there sodium lauryl sulfate? Why is there like detergent in our toothpaste? Why do we do this with, this? And then we like don't sterilize. We just leave. Why is that okay to leave on our counter all day? And then we just put it back in our mouth. Where if we did that with some, like if I like anything else, I put it in my mouth, like even a candy I put in my mouth, I would never stick it on the counter and then put it back in my mouth, at the end of the day and be like, oh, that was fine. There's toilets, right? Like
Or wash
have
dryers. We talked about
dryers,
dryers.
like I have a whole chapter on toilets and questioning why we're doing that, and toilet paper. But most of your clothing dryers, it is like, it's if it's gas still, it's a metal bucket with a fire underneath, and it's just spinning under a fire. It's like, it's cave person technology. I mean, it's pretty it's like pretty on the outside, but why are we doing that, right? And there's some humor to all of this, right? Why, like, even like everything here, why do I have 6 cables coming out of my laptop right now? um right, but what my shirt, I have like 8 buttons going down the thing that I have to do this to get my shirt on. We have better technology out there, but we're still doing this for some reason, for tradition, for habits. um right, who knows? And we have to question the status quo all the time. That's what good designers do. That they say, is there another way? Is there a better way? Why are we doing it this way?
Do you find that if you are doing something, you're you solve or you attack a problem in the same way, you get similar results? So are there are lots of things in here that made me think, oh, I should try this, or some of it was just thinking about it differently. I had never thought about the dryer. I do think this is really big, and it gets the house hot, but I don't know how to fix that. But I think I didn't even really think until you mentioned it, that I was like, huh, yeah, but this is a lot of space we're wasting, that we could solve this, but we're doing it because it's comfortable. And it's like the Dyson guy who, changed how vacuums work, right? He just got sick of it. Um, I guess for me, as not an engineer, I think about things that I would like differently, but I don't know that there's even an option. Maybe it's a little different. And you and I talked about maybe product design, how that's different. But I also think like advertising is changing because we don't advertise in the same way. So how do we advertise now? And if you had told me 20 years ago or when 50 years ago that you had said, there will be ad campaigns that are running for 15 or 20 years. Like the Chick-fil-A eat more chicken eat more chicken. I was about to say eat more cows. No, the cows do not want to be eaten. But it's like that's one Flow with Progressive. The Mayhem guy has been about 7 to 10 years. This just wasn't normal. This wasn't insurance really stepped it up, in the last couple decades. But I guess I just think that's the kind of thinking that we need to be using this as a tool and teaching us. But I loved the part about humor. There was something in the book that was, and I'm off my thing, so maybe I should get back to this. So let me ask you this. I just really enjoyed the humor, and because there's some healing, I think, that comes along with humor. You talked about, I think, and again, I've been watching things and can't remember if I read it or if I heard it somewhere else, but the power of humor to be able to help you step out of just you're more comfortable. If you're going to do something that's uncomfortable, you should laugh for a while before. That's going to help you because it's changing your body chemistry or something, right? So maybe if we're going in and we always are kind of solving this or attacking a problem the same way, is something we could do is just do something to make us laugh more or to get that part of our brain flowing, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I talk a lot about how humor and creativity are helpful for like making connections and coming up with ideas. But I think what you're pointing out is that just being like humorous or being in a state of levity or laughing, right, is also good for creativity on its own. And there's some interesting studies on that where they had people watch comedy movies before idea generation, and it puts you in the right mindset. There's definitely like some like neurotransmitters going on here, right? When you're laughing, there's dopamine involved. Dopamine improves your ability to make connections or be open to new connections. And so being in a positive affect, a state of positive affect, is good for creativity. And that's also going back to play. When you're playing, you're in a positive affect, like a happy state of mind. And that allows you to be open to new things or try new things, explore new things, open to new ideas. And laughter is social lubricant.
That was I loved that. Yes, that was one of the things, because you were saying in there, I had never heard of that. I'm sure maybe you made it up, but I thought that was brilliant. I was like, it is social lubricant. It does. It's like, anyway, tell them about that.
Yeah. Well, most things we laugh at are not funny. It's like something like 90, I don't know, the study was like 90% of the things that we laugh at right now, right? I kind of like giggled a little bit, right? That's not fun. What I said was not funny. If you transcribe it and you ask people how funny these statements are, they will say, there's no humor in these statements, right? But what we laugh at is it's me connecting with you, and it's saying, hey, I'm being friendly here, or hey, I'm nervous right now, or what I'm about to say is interesting. Pay attention. And now I'm like I'm being meta on myself, right? But the laughter is not a result of an incongruity or a non-obvious connection or a joke. It's there to connect people socially.
So I think that it's funny because, when you're a kid and you're not supposed to be laughing, and maybe it's happened as an adult to me yesterday, and you're trying to like hold your face in a non-laughing, but the sound keeps happening and you're like, somebody says something, this sounds like cards being dealing, and it doesn't matter, the other person could be crying and I am like, oh my gosh, I'm having a hard time. Every time that sound happens, it's this trigger because I'm not supposed to be laughing, and then it's even worse when I am laughing and then other people are, it's like, minus the person who couldn't hear the thing that was happening, right? It is that awkward, and it's that we're trying not to be. And I think that's where I connected to the weird words or the triads that you have that are going on. I enjoy those awkward things. I think that those are memorable. And for me, I was taught that the best design is the one that is the memorable one, but that is where you see community coming together. That's that team building when you're all in the knowledge. So that's also understanding your users or understanding the people. And I think that it really is important to do this with others. I'm an extrovert, so I want to do it with others. So introverts may struggle with this, but there is huge value to just being seen. And I think, and like you were saying in improv, listening is really key. And for all of us who are designers, we have to listen to our client. We have to listen to what they want and getting on the same team. So a lot of the stuff in the book could be great for team building, could be great for just me sharpening my creativity skills. And I think it's important to do, even if I don't think that there's A plus B equals C relationship. Maybe you think, well, I don't do a lot of stuff with imagination or dreaming. I'm designing. What am I designing that's boring? Maybe a
Dental
flyer.
tools.
I don't know. Yeah, I always say dentist websites. So I was trying to give the dentist a break, but there are things that we're just accepting, right? As a product designer for things that you've been able to do. And Jessie, who's here, she's a product designer. So it's like you can actually make a difference, but sometimes people need to have that extra step. Let me go back to my questions. I guess, maybe we've already kind of answered this, but I would love to know what you think, how we can best cultivate these bigger dreams. So this is something I struggle with, Barry. I have a hard time dreaming big because I know what my limits are. So I have to really get into a different place. And it is hard. I can dream for other people, but I have a real hard time breaking out of thinking about reality. So when I went to grad school, I was a practical designer before, and I was a practical designer after. But during grad school, they're like, do whatever you want. And I'm like, ooh, is this going to be in CMYK? Do I have I kind of like the parameters because they help me. When you have everything, I get lost in all the abilities or the possibilities. So for me, dreaming big, I would love for you to help me cultivate how I could be able to dream bigger or be more maybe it's just a self-driven project where I'm seeing things, all the different things in my house that I think could be designed better. I can't design them because I'm not an engineer, but is there anything that could help me?
Well, I think I talk a little bit about this in the book, but people don't like radical innovation. They like incremental innovation. I mean, the world needs radical change, but what people really want is incremental change. They want things that are familiar, but just a little better or a little different. So it already fits into their schema, or, they can understand, it's like the iPhone, but it's better in this way, right? Or
Oh,
It's
right.
like a microphone, but it also does this. That's the kind of stuff that people want or like or accept easily. That's
Mm-hmm.
called Maya, most advanced yet acceptable.
Okay.
Um, and when you go past it to things that are too advanced or too radical, people don't adopt it because it's threatening or it's new or involves too much new stuff to learn, or it involves throwing out the current way of doing things. And so, um, I think, yeah, dream big is good, but there's a lot of space for dreaming medium. And that's where that's also in my classes, that's where I focus on the students, in the, the medium dreaming, not little, but also not, we can't test it yet. There's a space for that too. We have courses on the dreaming big, but there's a lot of value to shooting here because you're going to be successful and you're still progressing society
Mm-hmm.
forward through that adjacent possible. Yeah. The other thing that you said that's really interesting is constraints.
Mm-hmm.
And we like constraints, and that helps with creativity. But you can't have too few and you can't have too many. There's a sweet spot for constraints for you to be creative. And in some of my research, it's two constraints. And that's where you get it's specific enough for you to come up with good ideas, but it's not limiting enough for you to filter out stuff. And if you think about it, going back to board games, that's categories, right? It's two constraints. It starts with this letter and it fits into this category. Go, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you had one constraint, not a fun game. And if you had more than two constraints, you can't do 12 of them in 1 minute or 2 minutes, right?
Right.
So it's there's something magic with having a double constraint to a problem.
So one of the things that I had asked, and because a lot of the people here are illustrators, they're designers, animators, web designers. I'm trying to think about every book designers, people here. I think Jesse's our only product designer. Besides you, I guess. If you're trying to tell somebody who is a professional creative, even a writer, I think a lot of the things in the book work for anybody in creative field. How is your book best used in regular practice? What would you tell them?
Okay, so I've read a lot of books on creativity, and they tend to fall into two camps, I guess. There's famous person, not academic, writes a book on creativity, and it's how they think of ideas and what they think is important for you to be creative.
Their process, their
because that's
particular
how
process.
I do it, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And maybe it's written very conversationally, perhaps, right? And then there on the total opposite end, there are scholars in academia who write very, very detailed books and papers on creativity. And maybe it doesn't have pictures, and maybe it's not written to a layman's audience, and maybe it's very analytical, describing studies of people, right? And there's sort of this gap between the two. And that's where my book comes in, where it is written in a conversational manner. There's like 150
Pictures?
illustrations
Yep.
that I made. It's full of very relatable examples and current examples, like Rick and Morty and The Simpsons and Seinfeld and Scattergories and Adventure Time, right? But if you look at the end of every chapter, there's a long list of citations.
Right.
In fact, if you only look at those parts, it looks like this is a very scary book. but it is highly cited. And I say, this is okay. If you want to do this idea generation method, this is when you use it and why. And here's the studies that support why you do that, or why you do this before idea generation. And here's my own published academic study that supports why quantity is so important, or whatever. And so I'm hoping to, not that either of those other two types of readings are not valuable. They're very valuable and important, but I was trying to be in this intermediate where it's like things that someone can actually do to be more creative, and it's backed by
Right.
the rigor and the experimental studies, and supported with the paper references.
Which I liked. I like the psychology studies, or the studies that happen. I like reading those and seeing how, and maybe that's just the designer in me that is always thinking about the audience and how this would work and how can this be improved. But I did really enjoy. I did write in my book, and in the very beginning you give us it's like, how many things can you use an item for? I won't share what the item is, but it's like, you have this one item, how many different uses? And even if it was this, right, this highlighter, I would have said, oh, this is a hat, a hat for somebody. It could also be, I don't know. I was thinking about scale changes. Like, this could be like a really big, this is like a parking deck for a ant or something, like, I'm thinking of all the other things, not just, well, you can draw lines or you can highlight in a book and things like that. And I think that seeing things like that is important. And even that small exercise was just a good one. But there was a graph, and I'm going to show this graph. I think, anyway, so here's the graph. I think everybody can see. If I'm still talking, it'll be seen. But this was what was so interesting, the stuff that was in the circle. Can you explain? Do you remember what this is?
Yeah. So each one of those dots is a person or a subject in a study, and they're plotted on how many ideas they came up with and the creativity of those ideas. And so it was I think that was like people coming up with ideas for toasters and umbrellas and toothbrushes. And the first purpose of that graph is to show that the more ideas you come up with, the more creative ideas you're going to have. There's a high correlation between quantity of ideas and creativity of ideas. But the circle on there is represented that those are the people who are coming up with lots and lots of creative ideas. And those people weren't engineers, they weren't designers, they weren't students. Those dots were professional improv comedians that were coming up with more creative product ideas than product designers.
And these were quick. These were like, how many in a certain amount of time? It wasn't like, you have 2 weeks, see how many ideas. These are quick thinking ideas, which, although we do have some time, sometimes when we're designing something, it is best to get a lot of ideas out, the good and the bad. And it's also maybe the we self-edit often. I think that especially in a team, we can self-edit, and it's best in that's just one of the rules in improv, that you're not judging. Any answer is okay. Yep. That to me was pretty interesting. And I think, so I'm going to read this one because we have 3 minutes left. You studied the connection of improv and creativity. What was the top 3 things that you gleaned that you regularly return to in your personal creative practice that you maybe weren't employing, but now you are?
Well, I think you started going there, but yes, and so that's this maybe the main rule. One of the big rules of improv comedy is yes, and so it's agree with what you just heard and then build on it. And I mean, in a theater setting, that makes sense, right? You're on stage, somebody's like it's a beautiful day at the beach. And they're like, we're not at the beach. Like that's, you killed
That
that
kills
scene.
it. Yeah, right. Right.
And like your partner is like, okay, where do we go from here? But I mean, that maps to the two of the main rules of brainstorming, which are defer judgment and then build on ideas. It makes you a good team player. And I think we tend to always go to the critical stuff. Why won't that work? What could be the issues moving forward? And if some of you like the thinking hats, right, that's a specific hat like that you wear, but you should probably go first to the yes and. So the build it like, okay, what if yes, and then what, and build on it. And it makes that person feel better because they like their idea. Somebody likes my idea. I'm going to go with it. Quantity of ideas and creativity of ideas. The more ideas you have, the more creative ideas you have. The first ideas you think of are the same ideas everyone thinks of. And it's not until you get to like 8, 9, 10th idea is where you start to get to the novel ones that very few people think of. So push yourself past the first stuff that comes to mind. So let's see what else. I mean, listening is really important to designers, and it's also critical to improv. And I am so bad at that, but I'm getting better.
What are you doing to get better? So what is something that you're doing to get better at listening?
So I think we often have the thing that we want to say or the idea that we want to share, but you have to know that there will be a time you can always share that later. But when somebody else is talking, let's go down that path first. You have to put a push pin and say, okay, I'm going to make sure I'll introduce that thing later. But if I engage with you and I listen to what you're saying, then you're going to say, oh, this person likes what I'm saying. And then when I introduce something later, hopefully they're paying attention to the thing that I said. And it is something that I'm working on. But improv is something that really helps with that. It makes you in the moment, and it makes for better improv scenes because you're actually reacting in real time, and not thinking about the next thing that you're going to say while somebody else is talking.
Because in improv, things can change and the scene changes. So you have to be really present in that moment, right?
That makes for good for interviewing. Like it makes for, if you're doing design research and you're talking to somebody, you might have your questions that you want to, go through, and you want to hit on those questions. But what's really important is engaging that person. And oftentimes, even like writing notes, you're disengaging with that person because now I'm not fully listening. I'm writing notes, and I'm looking down, and that interaction is really important in user research, but also in team-based idea generation.
Yeah. All right. So how do you use well, we're out of time. So tell me what's next for you. So I was going to ask you how you use this in your teaching, but you kind of have talked about it. So what's next for you? And then I'm going to share the link, your links, and I'll read them out in a second. But what is next for you? Like, what's the next thing you're going to study, or what are you already studying?
So my original intent was to write a book on food design. And it ended up becoming a book on play and humor. So I might go there. I taught a class on food design with chefs, and it is something that's really interesting to me, and that might be my next book proposal.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you love food?
Well,
I see.
I have fine art of food behind me. I was based for grad school. This is short, but it was like, do I go to MIT? Do I go to the Culinary Institute of America, or do I go to Pratt for industrial design?
Wow.
And it was all three very different life choices, decisions.
So why did you choose? Why did culinary and industrial design go? What? And if you don't want to answer that, you can just say on to that next.
Well, my parents were like, "What are you, crazy?" No, my advisor was great, who I met at MIT, and he was starting this project with Hasbro, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds wonderful. That's close. That's close enough to theme parks."
Well, that's a really amazing opportunity that the others probably didn't have. So that is one that you can't really turn down. And it looks like you've done a lot of great things since.
And that saying about like, if you want to keep it playful, don't make it your so I still love cooking, right? And I want to make sure that I always love cooking.
I think that's a really neat for I just would love to see how you attack food design, because it may be different than if you were a trained chef. Because there may be some new flavors that can come out because you're not just heating your clothes with a fire in a metal drum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so you can follow Barry. You can his website, his web address, I don't know why I was going to say it like that, is wonderberry.com. Barry, wonders, just like WONDER. It's in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, it's the link right at the top. And then on Amazon, there's an Amazon link for the Sparking Creativity Play and Humor Fuel Innovation and Design. That's the link. And then there's a LinkedIn, so you can connect with him on LinkedIn. And Barry, just thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And then I have been, for the rest of the month, or until the end of the year, until Doc Reed gets enough money, we're doing saving the tatas again for Julie Reed's cancer. I'm just going to save that. If you guys would even just give up one coffee so that they can have some she's already had it once. They did it the way everybody said. Now they're trying a different way to beat it this time. So if you want to give to that, it is there, and there's a link. It's gofundme.com/F, the letter F/save the tatas again. But also the link is going to be right under Barry's, and then the rest of my links will be there as well. But Barry, thank you so much. I really enjoyed reading the book. I can't wait to continue using it and marking it up and continue to highlighting it. And just thanks for being here, and thanks for sharing it with us.
Oh, thanks for having me on this show. It was great.
Well, guys, I will see you next week. We have Matt Wood. He's going to be talking about branding and tattoos. It's different than you might think, and he's amazing illustrator. So I can't wait to have him on the show, and I will see you guys next week. And Barry, thanks again.
Yo, bye.
Bye.